Admiral Reed stared at the holographic display, his four eyes blinking in sequence as another red dot vanished from the map. The swarm had just taken their 31st system. His thin, gray fingers trembled as he gripped the edge of the command table. "How many casualties?" he asked, though he dreaded the answer. "Total population of Colony 31 was 6 million, sir," his aide reported. "Evacuation ships managed to save about 800,000. Reed's antenna drooped. Another massacre. The swarm didn't take prisoners. They simply consumed everything in their path, breaking down all matter into raw materials for their ever-growing armies." The doors to the command center slid open, and Council Member Thix floated in. Like most high-ranking Alliance officials, Thix's species resembled what humans might call a jellyfish, though their transparent body housed a complex neural network that made them natural leaders. "Admiral." Thix's voice resonated through the room. "The Council demands answers. How do we stop this invasion?" Reed looked at the tactical display again. The swarm's pattern was clear. They adapted to every weapon, every strategy the Alliance used. Energy weapons. The swarm developed reflective armor. Plasma torpedoes. They learned to disperse the plasma with electromagnetic pulses. Even their most advanced quantum disruption devices had only worked for 2 battles before the swarm found a way around them. "Council member," Reed spoke carefully, "I believe we must consider the unthinkable option." Thix's tentacles curled inward, a sign of extreme displeasure. "Explain." Reed pressed a button, and the display changed to show a small blue-green planet. Earth. The room fell silent. Even the junior officers, who normally buzzed with activity, stopped to stare. "You cannot be serious." Thix's voice turned cold. "The Deathworlders. They're savages. Savages who might be our only hope," Reed countered. He pulled up the classification data for Earth. Class 12 Deathworld. Average gravity 2.1 times Alliance standard. Extreme temperature variations. Constant tectonic activity. Regular exposure to harmful radiation from their sun. And yet, they survive. They thrive. They wage war on themselves. Thix protested. "Exactly," Reed said. "They understand warfare in ways we never could. Our civilizations evolved in peaceful environments. We developed technology to avoid conflict. But humans, they developed technology because of conflict." He brought up more images, human history, their weapons, their battles. "Look at this. While we were developing energy weapons that could disable ships without destroying them, they were perfecting ways to tear matter apart at the molecular level. While we sought to minimize casualties, they accepted the harsh reality that sometimes victory requires sacrifice." Thix's body pulsed with angry colors. "The Council quarantined Earth for good reasons. Admiral, they're unstable, aggressive, and completely unpredictable. And that's exactly what we need." Reed straightened his uniform. "The swarm beats us because they can predict our moves. We fight with logic, with established patterns. But humans, they're chaos incarnate on the battlefield. They break rules we didn't even know existed." A new alert flashed on the display. Another colony was under attack. "We have a choice," Reed said firmly. "We can maintain our principles and watch our civilization be consumed by the swarm, or we can ask for help from the one species in the galaxy that might understand how to fight an enemy like this." Thix floated silently for a long moment, tentacles swaying in thought. Finally, the Council member spoke. "The Council will need convincing." "Then convince them," Reed replied. "Because in 3 months, at the current rate of expansion, the swarm will reach the core worlds, and then nothing else will matter." Thix departed, leaving Reed alone with the tactical display. He zoomed in on Earth again, watching the busy orbital traffic around the planet. The humans had been denied Alliance membership, restricted from expanding beyond their solar system, all because the Alliance feared their violent nature. Now that same violent nature might be the galaxy's only hope. Reed began composing a message to Earth's orbital defense station. It was time to swallow their pride and ask the Deathworlders for help. Sometimes, he thought, you needed a monster to fight a monster. Captain James Walker read the message for the 5th time in his small office aboard Earth's Defense Station Alpha. The blue glow of Earth filled his window, a constant reminder of what he was sworn to protect. The message from the Alliance was both surprising and amusing. "They want our help," he muttered, shaking his head. "After 20 years of treating us like rabid animals." The station's AI chimed in. "The Alliance message appears genuine, Captain. Their defeat patterns match known data. They've lost 31 systems in 92 days." Walker stood up and stretched. At 6 feet tall, he was considered average on Earth, but to most Alliance species, he was a giant. His muscular frame, built by Earth's higher gravity, would probably terrify them. "Put me through to Earth Command," he ordered. The holographic display flickered to life, showing the stern face of General Thompson. "Captain Walker, I assume this is about the Alliance message." "Yes, sir. We should help them." The general's eyebrows rose. "Really? After how they've treated us? They called us, and I quote, too dangerous to join galactic society." Walker leaned forward. "Sir, this is the opportunity we've been waiting for. The Alliance needs us now. They're facing an enemy they can't beat with their fancy energy weapons and clean warfare. And you think we can help?" "I know we can." Walker pulled up the data on the swarm. "Look at their pattern. They adapt to energy weapons, shield frequencies, and standard tactics. But they've never faced anything like us. We still use kinetic weapons. We still train for hand-to-hand combat. We think differently." The general was silent for a moment. "The President is meeting with the World Council right now to discuss this. What's your recommendation, Captain?" Walker smiled. "Tell them yes, but with conditions. We help them, but in return, they lift all restrictions on human expansion. We get full Alliance membership, not this quarantine species nonsense." "They might not agree." "They will." Walker's voice was firm. "Because they're desperate, and desperate people make deals they wouldn't normally make." 4 hours later, Walker stood in the station's main conference room, waiting for the Alliance representatives to arrive. Earth had said yes, with conditions, and now it was time for the first face-to-face meeting. The Alliance ship docked with careful precision. Walker watched through the window as Admiral Reed and 2 other aliens made their way through the airlock. He had to hide his amusement at their nervous movements. "Welcome to Defense Station Alpha," Walker said as they entered. "I'm Captain James Walker." Admiral Reed's 4 eyes blinked rapidly. The alien was tall but thin, like a gray tree branch trying to wear a uniform. "Captain, thank you for agreeing to meet. Please, sit." Walker gestured to the chairs. He noticed how the aliens tried to maintain maximum distance from him while still being polite. "I've reviewed your situation. Earth is willing to help. With conditions," Reed said carefully. "Yes." Walker leaned back. "You need us. Not just our ships or our weapons, but our way of thinking. You need Deathworlders who understand that sometimes survival means getting your hands dirty." The smallest alien, a floating jellyfish-like creature, pulsed with angry colors. "You mean your savage ways of fighting." Walker laughed, making all 3 aliens flinch. "You call it savage. We call it effective. While you were developing weapons to disable ships, we were developing ways to destroy them completely. While you were trying to find peaceful solutions, we were preparing for the worst. And now the worst has come." He stood up, and the aliens instinctively moved back. "Here's the deal. We help you fight the swarm. In return, all restrictions on human expansion are lifted, and Earth gets full Alliance membership. Take it or lose another 30 systems in the next 3 months." Admiral Reed's antenna twitched. "The Council will agree. We have no choice." "No," Walker said softly. "You don't. Welcome to warfare, Earth style. I hope you're ready to learn how Deathworlders fight." As the aliens left to communicate with their council, Walker looked back at Earth through the window. Finally, humanity would have its chance to prove that being dangerous wasn't always a bad thing. Sometimes, the galaxy needed dangerous people to protect it. The Alliance flagship's war room fell silent as Captain Walker placed an old bullet on the holographic table. Admiral Reed and his officers stared at it like it might explode. "This," Walker said, picking up the bullet, "is what we're going to use against the swarm. A metal projectile." Admiral Reed's antenna twitched in confusion. "Captain, we have energy weapons that can cut through battleships. Why would we use primitive ammunition?" Walker smiled. "Because sometimes the old ways work best. Your energy weapons are amazing, but they're predictable. Energy has patterns. Patterns can be learned." He gestured to the battle displays showing their recent defeats. "The swarm learns patterns very well, doesn't it?" One of the Alliance officers, a tall insect-like being named Kix, stepped forward. "But projectile weapons are so messy, inefficient." "Exactly." Walker tossed the bullet to Kix, who caught it awkwardly. "Messy is good. Unpredictable is better. The swarm adapted to your energy weapons because energy follows rules. But this," he pointed to the bullet, "this follows chaos theory." Walker pressed a button, and a new hologram appeared. "An old Earth tank. We're going to modify your ships. Add kinetic weapons alongside your energy ones. The swarm won't expect physical ammunition. They've never needed shields against solid objects because nobody in the Alliance uses them anymore." Admiral Reed's 4 eyes blinked rapidly. "The Council will not approve of such barbaric methods." "The Council," Walker said firmly, "lost 31 systems using approved methods. Time to try disapproved ones." He brought up more images. Earth's military history. "Look at how we fought our wars. We never relied on just one type of weapon or tactic. We used everything. Tanks, planes, ships, submarines, ground troops, guerrilla warfare. Sometimes the simplest solution is the best one." The Alliance officers watched in horror as Walker showed them videos of Earth's past battles. To them, it looked like pure chaos. Soldiers fighting in mud, tanks crushing through walls, ships launching missiles. "This is how we'll beat them," Walker explained. "Not with elegant solutions, but with brutal efficiency. The swarm thinks like you do. Logically, predictably. They'll expect more energy weapons, more shield frequencies to adapt to. They won't expect chunks of metal moving at supersonic speeds." An aide rushed into the room, holding a datapad. "Admiral, the swarm has been spotted in System 32. Walker saw his chance. Let me show you how humans fight. Give me one ship, modified with our weapons. Let me prove this works." Admiral Reed's antenna drooped, a sign of deep thought. Finally, he nodded. "The light cruiser Star Dancer is yours. But Captain," he paused, "if this fails, Earth will be blamed for making things worse." "It won't fail," Walker said confidently, "because we're not just giving you our weapons. We're teaching you how to think like us. The swarm expects you to fight like Alliance members. Clean, efficient, predictable. They don't know what it's like to fight someone who evolved on a death world." He pulled up Earth's specifications again. "We came from a planet that tried to kill us every day. Earthquakes, storms, predators, diseases. We survived it all. We learned to adapt, to think creatively, to use whatever works. That's what you need now." The Alliance officers looked at each other nervously. Their species had evolved on peaceful worlds, developing technology to make life easier. Humans had developed technology to survive. "Prepare the Star Dancer," Walker ordered, "and get ready for a lesson in human warfare. Rule 1. There are no rules in survival." As the officers hurried to follow his orders, Walker looked at the bullet still in Kix's hand. The Alliance had avoided humans because they thought they were too violent, too unpredictable. Now those same traits might save the galaxy. Sometimes the best weapon wasn't the most advanced one. Sometimes it was the simple chunk of metal, fired from a gun that worked just as well today as it did centuries ago. Simple, reliable, deadly. The swarm was about to learn why humans were called Deathworlders. The modified Alliance ship Star Dancer shook as another practice round hit its targets. In the training room, Walker watched as Alliance crew members tried to handle Earth-style weapons. Most of them were struggling. No, Walker said, walking over to a blue-skinned alien named Trix. You're thinking too much about it. Stop trying to calculate the perfect shot. Trust your instincts. But the targeting computer, Trix began. Forget the computer, Walker interrupted. The swarm can hack computers. They can't hack your gut feelings. Around the room, 20 Alliance crew members were learning to use everything from simple pistols to shoulder-mounted rocket launchers. The weapons looked strange in their alien hands, but Walker knew they had to learn. Lieutenant Bell, another human trainer, was showing the group how to handle recoil. It's going to push back, she explained. That's normal. Work with the Force, don't fight it. One of the alien officers, a tall being with 4 arms, raised his hand. I don't understand. Why don't we use stabilizers? Because stabilizers can fail, Bell answered. In real combat, everything that can go wrong will go wrong. You need to be ready for that. Walker moved to the center of the room. Everyone, stop for a moment. Let me tell you a story about Earth's history. The aliens gathered around, some sitting, others floating, all looking nervous about the weapons they held. Long ago on Earth, there was a battle where a small army faced a much larger one. The smaller army was outmatched in everything: numbers, weapons, supplies. By all logic, they should have lost. Walker paused, seeing he had their attention. But they won. Know why? The room was silent. They won because they did something unexpected. Instead of fighting in the open field like everyone did back then, they hid in trees and behind rocks. They shot from shadows. They broke all the rules of proper warfare. Admiral Reed, who had been watching from the doorway, stepped forward. You mean they cheated? Walker smiled. In war, surviving isn't cheating. The swarm doesn't play fair. Why should we? He picked up a rifle and checked its magazine. All your advanced technology is great, but what happens when it fails? Humans learned to fight with sticks and stones before we had energy weapons. We never forgot those skills. A small jellyfish-like alien pulsed with worried colors. This goes against all Alliance military doctrine. Your doctrine is losing the war, Walker said bluntly. Time to learn new ways. He moved to the shooting range and fired 3 quick shots. Each one hit its target perfectly. No computer assist, no energy targeting, just skill and practice. The aliens watched in fascination as he reloaded. Some of them had never seen a mechanical weapon before joining this training. Tomorrow, Walker announced, we start learning ground combat. The room erupted in worried whispers. Ground combat was almost unheard of in Alliance warfare. But that's suicide. Someone shouted. No, Walker corrected, that's survival. The swarm will eventually board your ships. What will you do then? Ask them nicely to leave. He walked around the room, looking each alien in the eye. You called us Deathworlders like it was an insult, but we survived on a planet that tried to kill us every day. We learned to fight not because we wanted to, but because we had to. Admiral Reed's antenna twitched thoughtfully. And now we must learn the same. Exactly. Walker nodded. The swarm thinks like you used to, that advanced technology always wins. But humans know better. Sometimes victory comes down to one soldier, one bullet, and the will to survive. The aliens looked at their weapons with new understanding. They were learning more than just how to shoot. They were learning how to think like Deathworlders. Now, Walker said, raising his voice, let's try those targets again. Remember, stop calculating. Start feeling. And most importantly, he grinned, expect everything to go wrong. Because in real combat, It will. The training resumed, and this time, the shots were a little steadier, the movements a little more confident. The Alliance was learning that sometimes the best technology wasn't technology at all. It was the human touch. The modified ship Star Dancer drifted silently in the asteroid field of System 32. Captain Walker stood on the bridge, watching the main screen as 3 swarm ships approached. The Alliance crew around him was tense but ready. "Remember your training," Walker said quietly. "Everything we practiced for happens now." Admiral Reed's voice came through the comm. "Captain, you're sure about this plan?" "Trust me," Walker replied. "They'll do exactly what we expect. They've never faced a trap like this." The swarm ships moved closer, their biomechanical forms gliding between asteroids. They hadn't spotted the Star Dancer yet, hidden as it was behind a large rock. "All hands," Walker commanded, "prepare for combat. Weapons officer, load the kinetic rounds." Trix, now handling the new weapons console, nodded. His blue hands were steady as he loaded the massive railgun shells. "Ready, Captain." The lead swarm ship passed the first marker. Walker smiled. Now, the Star Dancer's engines roared to life. But instead of firing energy weapons, the ship launched dozens of small objects into the asteroid field. To the swarm's sensors, they looked like debris. They weren't debris. They were nuclear mines. Targeting their predicted escape route, Trix reported. The swarm ships reacted exactly as Walker had predicted. They turned to face the new threat, their shields powering up to deal with expected energy weapons. "They're scanning us," the sensor officer called out. "They've detected our weapons are different." "Too late," Walker grinned. "Detonate the mines." The asteroid field lit up like a new sun. The nuclear explosions weren't meant to destroy the swarm ships. They were meant to push the asteroids. Thousands of rocks, ranging from pebbles to house-sized boulders, suddenly became deadly projectiles. The swarm ship shields, designed to stop energy weapons, did nothing against the physical impacts. Rocks tore through their hulls like paper. "Main gun ready," Trix shouted. "Fire." The Star Dancer's railgun roared. The massive shell, traveling at a significant fraction of light speed, hit the lead swarm ship dead center. The alien vessel didn't just break, it shattered. Second shell loaded. The remaining swarm ships tried to retreat, but Walker had planned for this too. Launch the nets. Special pods fired from the Star Dancer, expanding into massive metal nets in space. The swarm ships, their sensors confused by the nuclear radiation, flew right into them. Their engines tangled, leaving them helpless. "Finish them," Walker ordered. 2 more railgun shots, 2 more explosions. In less than 5 minutes, 3 swarm ships were destroyed. No Alliance ship had ever managed that before. The bridge erupted in cheers. Even Admiral Reed, watching from his flagship, was speechless. "This," Walker announced, "is how humans fight. We use everything around us as a weapon. Those asteroids, free ammunition. That radiation, perfect sensor scrambler. The nets, old fishing trick." The sensor officer suddenly called out, "Captain, more swarm ships entering the system." "Good," Walker smiled. "Time for lesson 2. Send the signal." From behind other asteroids, 5 more Alliance ships appeared, all modified with human weapons. The swarm ships paused, probably trying to analyze this new threat. "All ships," Walker commanded, "show them what else you learned in training." What followed was unlike anything the Alliance had ever seen. The modified ships didn't fight in formation. They didn't follow standard tactics. Each one fought differently, unpredictably, using asteroids for cover, laying more traps, firing ancient-style weapons that the swarm couldn't adapt to. When it was over, the system was clear of swarm ships. Not one Alliance vessel was lost. Admiral Reed's voice came through again, filled with awe. "Captain, we never imagined." "This is just the beginning," Walker said. "Now you see why Earth is a death world. We didn't just survive there. We learned to win against impossible odds. He looked at his crew, seeing new confidence in their alien faces. They weren't just copying human tactics anymore. They were starting to understand the Deathworlder mindset. "Send word to the council," Walker ordered. "Tell them we know how to beat the swarm, and tell them to prepare for more lessons in human warfare." The war wasn't over, but for the first time since the swarm appeared, the Alliance had hope. They had finally learned that sometimes the best way to win wasn't with advanced technology. It was with Deathworld ingenuity. 2 months after the first victory, the Alliance war room was a very different place. Where once delicate aliens had flinched at the mention of combat, now they studied Earth's military history with fierce interest. Maps covered the walls, showing dozens of successful battles against the swarm. But victory had its price. Captain Walker stood before the Alliance Council, his uniform still dusty from the latest ground battle. "Yes, we lost the ship Swift Wind in the battle. But her crew's sacrifice let us evacuate 10,000 civilians from Colony 42. Council member Thix's tentacles waved in agitation. "This is what concerns us, Captain. Your tactics, they deliberately sacrifice ships and crews." "To save others," Walker replied firmly. On Heaven's Gate Colony, Lieutenant Bell and her team stayed behind to hold off the swarm while the evacuation ships launched. They died, but they saved 40,000 people. Admiral Reed, his uniform now bearing Earth-style combat medals, stepped forward. "The Council needs to understand something about humans. Their violence isn't random. Their sacrifices aren't wasteful." The room fell quiet. Reed's antenna twitched as he chose his words carefully. 2 days ago, I watched a human soldier throw himself on a swarm explosive device. He died to save his alien teammates, beings he'd known for less than a month. Walker nodded. "You called us violent, but you never understood why. We're not violent because we love destruction. We're violent because we'll do whatever it takes to protect others." The main screen showed their latest victories. In every battle, human tactics had proved effective. But more importantly, human values had spread through the Alliance forces. "Your soldiers used to retreat at the first sign of defeat," Walker continued. "Now they stand their ground. They protect civilians. They make hard choices." A new officer rushed in, holding a datapad. "Captain, swarm forces approaching Sector 7. Walker checked the tactical display. "They're trying to flank our defense line." "Typical." He turned to the council. "Watch, and you'll understand what really makes humans dangerous." He pressed a button, and the screen showed Alliance ships moving into position. Each one now carried both energy weapons and human-style armaments. But more importantly, each crew now fought with human determination. "All ships," Walker commanded, "Operation Bodyguard is in effect. Protect the civilian transports at all costs." The battle that followed proved everything Walker had been saying. Alliance ships, once rigid and predictable in their tactics, now fought with deadly creativity. They used debris as cover, laid traps, and coordinated their attacks with a fierceness that would have been unthinkable 3 months ago. When a swarm ship broke through toward a civilian transport, 3 Alliance vessels moved to intercept. They took heavy damage, but the civilians escaped safely. "This," Walker said to the Council, "is why Earth is a death world. Not because we love violence, but because we understand that sometimes you must fight with everything you have to protect what matters." The battle ended in another victory. Though 2 Alliance ships were lost, the Council members watched in silence as rescue operations began immediately, another human tradition that the Alliance had adopted. Admiral Reed's voice was soft but proud. "We feared humans because we thought their violence made them evil. We were wrong. Their willingness to fight and die to protect others makes them the greatest allies we could have hoped for." Council member Thix's colors shifted to a deep blue, a sign of acceptance. "Perhaps we have misjudged Earth. Your people are indeed violent, Captain Walker, but your violence has purpose. Your sacrifices have meaning. Walker looked at the casualty reports coming in. Every loss hurt, but every loss had saved others. That was the price of victory, a price humans had long understood. We're teaching you to fight, he said, but more importantly, we're teaching you why to fight. Not for glory, not for power, but to protect those who can't protect themselves. The Alliance was learning that being a Deathworlder meant more than just being dangerous. It meant being ready to die so others could live. 6 months after Earth joined the war, the Alliance Grand Chamber was packed with representatives from every member species. At the center of the room stood Captain Walker, Admiral Reed, and the human crews who had changed the course of the war. The Supreme Council leader, a tall being of pure energy, spoke first. The swarm is retreating. Their forces have been pushed back beyond our borders. Thanks to Earth's assistance, we have achieved what we thought impossible. Walker stood at ease, his battle-worn uniform telling its own story. Behind him, the main screen showed the latest maps. No more red dots marking defeated systems. Instead, green lights showed reclaimed colonies and secured borders. And so, the Council leader continued, we face a new decision. Earth's quarantine status must be addressed. Admiral Reed stepped forward. His once pristine uniform now carried human-style combat badges. Honored Council, before you vote, let me share what I have learned about humans. The chamber grew quiet. Reed's 4 eyes swept across the audience. 6 months ago, I feared them. I called them savages, brutes, dangerous Deathworlders. I was right about one thing. They are dangerous, but not in the way we thought. He gestured to Walker. They taught us to fight, yes, but more importantly, they taught us to protect. Every human tactic, every strategy, had one goal, saving lives. The screen changed to show battle footage. Alliance ships using human methods to defend civilian transports. Ground troops holding position against overwhelming odds to buy time for evacuations. Humans and aliens fighting side by side, protecting each other. We thought their violent nature was a flaw. Reed continued. Now we understand it was shaped by their world. Earth tried to kill them every day. With storms, earthquakes, diseases, predators. They didn't become violent because they loved fighting. They became strong because they had to protect each other. Walker took his turn to speak. You called Earth a death world. You're right. But surviving a death world taught us something valuable. The strength of unity. When everything tries to kill you, you learn to stand together. You learn that survival isn't about being the strongest. It's about protecting the weakest. The Council leader's energy form pulsed thoughtfully. And now you seek full Alliance membership. We seek partnership, Walker corrected. Earth offers its strength not to dominate, but to defend. Yes, we're dangerous. Yes, we think differently. But isn't that exactly what the Alliance needs? Screens around the chamber showed more images. Human medics treating alien wounded. Alliance crews celebrating victories together. Joint training sessions where species learned from each other. Admiral Reed raised his voice. I move that Earth be granted immediate full membership in the Alliance, with all rights and privileges. Their quarantine status should be lifted. We need their perspective, their strength, and yes, even their dangerous nature. The vote was quick and unanimous. As the Council leader announced Earth's new status, cheers erupted throughout the chamber. Species that had once feared humans now celebrated with them. Walker looked at his crew, humans and aliens standing together. This is what makes Earth strong, he said to the Council. Not our weapons, not our tactics, but our ability to work together, to protect each other, to fight for something bigger than ourselves. The Supreme Council leader descended from the high platform, approaching Walker. Captain, your people have taught us that being dangerous isn't always bad. Sometimes the galaxy needs dangerous people, people willing to fight, to sacrifice, to protect others. Walker smiled. That's what humans do best. We protect our own. And now, the Alliance is our own. As celebrations continued around them, Admiral Reed turned to Walker. So, Captain, was it worth it? Coming to help the people who feared you. Walker watched as humans and aliens mingled freely, no longer separated by fear or prejudice. Always. Because that's another thing about being a Deathworlder. We don't hold grudges. We're too busy preparing for the next challenge. And what challenge is that? Walker's eyes gleamed. Teaching the Alliance that being strong doesn't mean being alone. We survived Earth because we stood together. Now the Alliance will be strong for the same reason. The Deathworlders had been called to face defeat. Instead, they had taught the galaxy a new way to achieve victory. Together.